Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Have you ever heard that everything is bigger in Texas? Or that everyone here owns a gun and rides a horse? Today we're going to explore 10 Texas myths you won't believe people actually think are true. Texas is full of interesting misconceptions, and if you've never been here, you might believe some of them too. Join me as we uncover these strange and colorful myths about this vast state. I promise you'll be surprised by the fascinating and unexpected truths about a place where the barbecue is delicious, but the stories are even better. Let's dive in. Number 10. Everything is bigger in Texas. Let's talk about cowboy hats and one of Texas's most famous sayings. People often joke that everything from steaks to skyscrapers to cowboy hats is bigger in Texas. This saying is like the unofficial Texas motto. But it's not just about hats, it's about everything. Texans are proud people who love their state, and they don't mind a little exaggeration about its personality. The idea that everything is bigger in Texas likely started because of the state's enormous geographical size. Texas is second only to Alaska in terms of square miles and is the largest of the lower 48 states. When this saying first became popular, Alaska wasn't even a state yet, so Texas had a bit more significance back then. Nobody knows the exact origins of this saying. It's not like Walt Whitman or Mark Twain wrote it down in a book. It first appeared in print in the 1930s. But many believe it was around since the 1880s. So yes, while it might have something to do with hats, it really applies to everything in Texas. Hey there, where are you from? I want to know which city you're watching our video from. Please leave a comment so we don't feel lonely. A small action like this will motivate us to make more videos. Thank you, and much love to you. Number 9. Texas owns its public land. Here's a curious one I came across a few years back from a comment on one of my Texas videos. Someone mentioned that Texas is the only state that kept its public land when it joined the Union, supposedly giving it special privileges. Well, the truth is, Texas did retain a significant portion of its land, but it's not entirely autonomous. The federal government still has a say and owns land for military bases and other purposes. To put it in perspective, states like Nevada have about 80% of their land controlled by the federal government. On the other hand, Texas has one of the lowest percentages, with just 2% of its land being federally owned. For further comparison, states like Iowa and Connecticut have around 3%. So while Texas does have a unique land ownership situation, it's not as independent from federal oversight as some might believe. Number 8. That Wild West vibe. Texas has a reputation for its Wild West charm, which definitely adds to its unique character. But does this mean people are still roaming around in cowboy hats and boots armed to the teeth? Not quite. While it's true that Texas boasts a high number of gun owners compared to other states, it doesn't mean everyone's decked out in cowboy gear every day. Yes, you'll come across folks in cowboy hats and boots, but it's far from a daily uniform for most Texans. In rural areas, cowboy boots are more prevalent, largely because they're practical. The environment out there can be tough, with things like Texas stickers that get stuck in your shoes and socks, and various critters in the desert that might bite you. Boots are just more practical. However, in urban centers like Dallas and San Antonio, it's not as common. You might see it, but it's not an everyday thing for most residents. When it comes to guns, Texans are definitely proud of their Second Amendment rights. But modern Texas is just as civilized and law-abiding as anywhere else. There's no pressing need to have a gun on your hip, though many do carry. To be clear, I'm not implying that carrying a gun is illegal or criticizing the Second Amendment. I own guns myself. So, let's put that myth to rest. Number 7. All they eat is barbecue in Texas. That's just not true. It's absurd if you really think Texans only eat barbecue. Sure, Texas is famous for its incredible barbecue, and you'll find plenty of barbecue joints and people grilling in their backyards. But the culinary scene here is so much more diverse. Tex-Mex cuisine is a huge part of Texas's food culture, offering some of the best tacos and Mexican dishes you'll ever taste. Head over to Laredo, and while you'll definitely find great barbecue, you'll also discover amazing Mexican food. And it's not just limited to Tex-Mex. Texas has a rich variety of dining options. You'll find Vietnamese restaurants, Italian eateries, and everything else you'd expect in any other state. From food trucks serving delicious tacos to upscale fine dining establishments, Texas offers a wide range of culinary experiences that go far beyond just barbecue. Number 6. Texas can legally leave the United States. All right, let's tackle this secession myth. I'd like to say the word, but my tongue's a bit twisted today. Secede from... Yeah, you get the idea. Is it impossible for Texas to secede from the United States? No, not entirely. But can they just decide to leave? Absolutely not. There are a ton of legal and bureaucratic hurdles they would have to clear first. Texas can't just call a state legislature meeting and vote to leave the union. This misconception stems from a mix of historical facts and misunderstandings. While Texas does have a unique history, no state has the legal right to simply exit the union. The Civil War pretty much settled that argument. And I can already see the comments section lighting up with history buffs ready to dive into the details. They'll explain all the nuances for us. Number 5. Texas has its own power grid. While it's true that Texas has its own independent power grid, there's a common misconception that it's completely self-sufficient and free from outdated regulations. That's not entirely accurate. Texas's power grid, though unique, does have its limitations. Recent events have shown that it can face issues just like any other power system. Being an energy state, Texas does have a robust grid, but it's not flawless. It's not entirely self-sufficient, and it's subject to various challenges and constraints. So, while Texas does stand out for its independent power grid, it's not as immune to problems as some might think. Number 4, it's always hot and it's a desert. This one is a bit of a mixed truth. Yes, Texas experiences some very warm weather, but it's not hot all year round. And it's definitely not entirely desert. Many people assume Texas is always hot, not knowing that some areas, like the Panhandle and West Texas, can get quite cold in the winter. The state is huge, so its climate varies significantly. The northern regions can be pretty chilly during winter. Now, regarding the desert misconception. While there are desert areas, they don't define the whole state. For example, the Houston area, Beaumont, and the regions towards Louisiana are quite swampy. Central and South Texas feature the scenic Texas Hill Country, which is part of the Edwards Plateau. Move north of Dallas, and before you reach Oklahoma, it starts looking like Kansas with extensive farmland and small towns. If you're looking for the desert landscape often associated with Texas, you'll find it around El Paso. That area has plenty of desert terrain to explore. Number 3. Texas is the reddest state. Let's address a political myth about Texas. Many people think it's the most Republican, conservative state, but that's not quite the case. There are different methods to gauge the political leanings of a state. One interesting way is by examining the presidential election maps. For instance, in both the 2016 and 2020 elections, every state except for 2, Oklahoma and West Virginia, had at least one county voting for the Democratic nominee. In Texas, numerous counties in South Texas and major cities like Dallas, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Laredo, and El Paso leaned blue. These urban areas, along with some other counties, supported the Democratic candidates. So, while Texas is definitely not the bluest state, it's also far from being the reddest. It showcases a diverse political spectrum. Number 2, they got a rodeo every day. Not quite. I did some research and couldn't find an exact number of rodeos in Texas. However, I did discover that there are around 30 major professional rodeos held annually. In addition to these big events, there are numerous smaller rodeos taking place in rural communities across the state. While it's not a daily occurrence, you can bet there's some kind of rodeo happening somewhere in Texas almost every week. Number 1, Texas. This idea is completely off base. Texas is far from being the whitest state. In fact, it's one of the most diverse states in the country. Here's a quick look at the demographics. 40.2% of the population is Hispanic or Latino, 39.8% is white, 12.8% is African American, 6.1% is Asian, 1.4% is Native American, and 2% are Pacific Islanders. Compare that to Maine, the actual whitest state, where 92% of the population is white. Vermont and New Hampshire are close behind, both at 91.3%, and West Virginia is 90.4% white. So, Texas doesn't even come close. Diversity in Texas is reflected not only in its demographics, but also in its vibrant culture, food, and traditions. In cities like Houston, one of the most diverse cities in the United States, you can experience a blend of cultures through various international festivals, cuisines, and community events. The state's rich history, influenced by Mexican, German, African, and Native American cultures, among others, contributes to its unique cultural tapestry. You might think Texas is a very racist state based on stereotypes, but that's not really accurate. Sure, you'll find racism anywhere, but it's not as prevalent as you might assume. Texas was a frontier state, and dealing with daily challenges often meant relying on your neighbors, regardless of who they were. In my experience, Texans tend to be good to each other and to their neighbors. This is just my opinion, but I believe it reflects the culture of the people here, separate from the politicians and policies. Moreover, Texas's educational institutions and workplaces are increasingly diverse, promoting a culture of inclusivity and acceptance. Universities like the University of Texas at Austin and Texas A&M University host students from all over the world, fostering an environment of cultural exchange and learning. Economic opportunities in Texas also attract a diverse workforce, contributing to its multicultural landscape. Industries such as technology, energy, and healthcare bring in talent from various backgrounds, enhancing the state's economic and cultural diversity. All right, that wraps up our exploration of the top 10 Texas myths you won't believe people actually think are true. I hope you found this video as fascinating as I did. Texas is truly a unique state with a rich history and culture, far beyond the stereotypes. From cowboy hats and barbecue to diverse demographics and modern lifestyles, there's so much more to discover about the Lone Star State. Now, I'm curious to hear from you. Which myth surprised you the most? Do you know any other myths about Texas that we didn't cover? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and remember to be kind to each other. See you next time on my channel.